Welcome, everybody, to another exciting episode of Lubrication Across the Nation, brought to you by DGP. That's Dynamic Green Products, bio-based, zero compromise. You can find all your needs at changeyouroil.com. I would like to welcome my special guest returning for time number 2, Athena Odell. Welcome,
Hi.
welcome. Athena is joining us from the cold climes. Well, I don't know exactly how cold it is right now, but of New York. How cold are you up there in New York?
It was in the high 30s.
Oh, okay. So balmy. All right.
Yes. You
We were
don't
in
realize how warm 38 degrees is until it's been, 3 degrees for about, 3 or 4 weeks.
nice. That's solid. Get it all behind you.
Yes. Yeah, I'm excited for spring. Everybody seems to be gearing up for spring. The grass is starting to pop through the snow in some areas. The buds are, you could tell they're forming on a bunch of the different plants. It's we're underway with a lot of the pruning for hydrangeas and the fruit trees and things like that.
Oh, yes, the hydrangeas.
Yes.
They're so beautiful, but such a handful at the same time.
Agreed. Very much so.
But when done well, they're really nice. That's one of the I think that's one of my love-hate plants because there's so many times where I've been in a place where the customer doesn't want them touched at all because they feel like they like them growing wild or something.
Okay. So they just want them very overgrown and crazy.
Exactly. Yeah. And then they want them they want them to take care of them, but then they've been growing for years. Yeah. It's like, let's just take them all the way. Let's just start over. Just make it happen. But for those watching and or listening, Athena is an arborist out of New York. She has been on the show once before, back in the beginnings. You were one of the first guests I had on
Really?
the show. So yeah. So it's great having you back on. We had a good chat last time.
It's great being back. Thank you.
How are your sons doing, by the way?
They're doing great. They're also very excited for it to be warm outside and for, tree work to pick up into full swing. Um, yeah, we're a little bit excited about this year.
Nice. Did you do a lot of storm work over the winter?
Yes. Yeah, there was a lot of storm. There was a lot of heavy winds and a lot of heavy snow. So there was definitely a lot of trees that there were either broken branches or the entire tree came down altogether, or, the customer could tell that in the future, the younger tree is going to have some problems, with all of the weight, so maybe to do some mitigation pruning to help its future growth. There's more reactive calls than proactive calls. The proactive calls do happen, but a lot of people don't realize it's going to be an issue until it's an issue.
Right. Till you're getting that early morning or middle of the night call that somebody has a downed tree in their yard or across their house or something worse.
Yeah. Yeah. Or, if a storm does hit and it's, going to be a couple days and they notice the first couple days their neighbors are getting a lot of damage or they're
Mm,
hearing reports of a lot of damage, then they'll look at the trees in their yard and be like, "Oh, maybe I should take care of this," but it's not until the storm hits and they actually see the tree swaying in the wind, before they start to worry.
I gotcha. So how does that change your business model from what you have during the rest of the year when you're talking about, these emergency services? And I mean, I guess, storms can happen throughout the year too, but I would think in winter it's a little more clustered than typical. But
I wouldn't necessarily say it happens more in the winter. Storm damage seems to happen all year round. Because you
gotcha.
especially get like those high wind summer storms as well. And during hurricane season and the tropical storms, there's definitely a lot of storm damage there. So I'd say it's maybe not necessarily a winter thing that you have to plan for, but something that you should be prepared for at all times. I try and keep a couple days a month on the schedule that are kind of open. So that way, if an emergency does happen, I have a little bit of leeway to maybe like, all right, this person I know isn't like in a rush to get the job done right away. I could
Gotcha.
maybe move them into one of the open day slots and move some stuff around and get, so as long as you have at least a couple days where you don't have anything scheduled, but plan for it to be emergency work. And if the emergency work doesn't happen, then, it's a shop day. It's you could catch up on
Sure.
paperwork. You could do some extra estimates that day. You can always fill it with something.
Yeah. Heaven forbid you have an office day.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little bit different. When I was up in Washington, it was like, I would say probably 80% to 90% of tree work was during over the winter, the course of the winter. So it was usually December or January
Really?
was when it would happen,
Okay.
because that's when we get a lot of the ice storms coming through. Because ice storms were very really typical in the Cascades. So rather than having a lot of snowfall, I mean, we had a lot of snowfall. Typically, it was the ice storms that would, give us the issues, because we'd have, an inch to 2 inches of ice come in
Oh
over,
wow.
a 6-hour period. And
Oh
so
wow. Yeah.
everything
Yeah.
just drops, and then there, I mean, the area that we were in the Cascades, it was right on the Oregon-Washington border, so there was a lot of high winds coming up the gorge in that area, but it was just kinda sporadic throughout the year that you would have something like that. It was like the huge bulk of it was during those couple of months in the wintertime. We'd have those ice storms, so it was always fun, because it was you would basically have to clear roadways to get to where you needed to go to be able to work on stuff, because you'd have downed trees all over the roadways and everything, if you're getting all those cleared to get to somebody's house to then, clear theirs, so
Do you have to put in a day's worth of work just to get to the day's worth of work?
exactly, exactly. There was, thankfully, it was a lot of the community would come together and kinda work on clearing off the roadways together, so it made it a
That's
little
a
bit easier. Yeah.
No, I was gonna say I'd be interested in the plant structure and biology there. It sounds like in an environment where that's a normal thing, the plants would maybe be a little bit like slow growing, a little bit more stocky to be prepared for that type of environment. So it'd be interesting to like see.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I would agree with that, definitely. There's definitely it's a lot of underbrush, but not a lot of, I mean, the trees are really the only thing that you have a lot of growth on, other
Right.
than, you've got a lot of rhododendron up in that area, but not like we have here in the South, where they're just massive, you know, 20 foot crazy bushes that have been in the yard for 100 years. They're all like really low lying.
Okay.
They only The average height on them is usually about maybe 5 feet or
Oh,
so.
really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So not really high. I never really thought about it until you brought that up.
Plants do adapt to their environment.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. It was the same way when I was in Alaska, but it was a completely different landscape, obviously, but yeah.
Yes. A little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, a little bit. You're going into spring now, you said. Do you do a lot of spring pruning before you get into summertime? When's your, like, big season for that start up where you are?
It already started.
It already did, okay.
I've been in it for about a week and a half. Pretty much I started right before we had that big snowstorm of the couple feet. I've been working on a lot of some properties have like wisteria vines or grapevines that uh are meant more for an aesthetic purpose. They plant the vines and next to like a wall, that they want it to grow
Gotcha.
over the wall or to wrap around a building or so now's the time where I start wrapping all the vines from last year's growth. And then, like I said, now I'm doing a lot of the hydrangeas. Now's all the time for the fruit trees. And yeah, you definitely want those done at the end of winter before they come out of dormancy. And then once everything starts to come out of dormancy and wake up is when you start doing, like your soil injections, your plant healthcare starts. There's definitely, there's a tiny little window where you don't do as much pruning because things are just waking up and starting to grow. You don't want to
Mhm.
like, if you prune a maple tree right when the buds are starting to wake up, it's, they leak a lot and you could make them susceptible for fungi to start growing or bugs to get attracted to the sap that's coming out of them. So there is a window that once things start waking up, you want to give it a little bit of time for things to start blooming and settle, and then you can start pruning again. But during that time is also when all your healthcare is happening and you're doing the spring fertilization and things like that. So you definitely have plenty of work to fill that window.
Yeah, because I was just gonna say, you do a little bit of both. You're not just solely, tree work, you're also doing the fertilization as well.
Correct.
Yeah. So you've got both that. So, I know, and we talked about a little bit about this in the last show that we did, but for those who may not have seen that show, what was your drive in getting into kind of that dual purpose of doing the tree work and also doing the plant work as well?
Just like tree work. I fell into it. Actually, quite literally, when I first started with Bartlett Tree Experts, the plant healthcare knowledge is, well, at least in the office that I was in, is kind of introduced and taught to everybody, right? Like everybody is kind of introduced to all the different aspects, and then you see what you're good at and what you're not good at. So I had some knowledge of plant healthcare. I had done some applicator training while I was there, and when I switched to the company, when I was in the Bartlett office, it was down towards the city, so it was an hour and a half drive one way for the office. So it wasn't really like a long-term thing that was going to be able to be sustainable. So I moved to a company up in Dutchess County up here, and I wasn't on the job for very long, and there was a workplace accident, and I fell almost 30 feet and 13 surgeries for 18 months, 8 months of physical therapy 4 times a week. And so working wasn't, there was a very long period of time where I was on like a 10-pound weight limit, or, I had,
Right.
yeah, lots of surgeries. And, but during that whole time period, I only missed a total of 2 months of work because I was still able to go in the office and, learn about the, like all, all the bookkeeping and help with the secretary work, and really hone in on the plant healthcare and start, learn taking classes and getting my technician license. I actually had the license before I was doing more of the spraying because I, was on a weight limit, of how much I was allowed to, pick up or put down, or do with things, but I could at least do all the books and the learning, and, go out and do estimates, and learn how to do sales and things like that. So I kind of took the time period of not physically being able to do things to learn all of that.
Yeah, you kinda made the most of that situation, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Well, so now with your business where you are and when you are now, what percentage would you say of each? Is it pretty even, or is it one more than the other?
Where I am right now, it's pretty even because we're still just starting out. We're still very small, and yeah, it's pretty even for the amount of calls that I get in, and the amount of work that we do.
So what's your goal going forward into this year? Because you said you were excited for this coming year. Is there anything big you have planned?
This year, I'm more excited for the boys. Sebastian has an opportunity to work with a company and hone in on his machine operator certification, and
Nice.
maybe start the training for getting his CDL, and start really learning a lot about the larger equipment and mechanics of things. That'll be a really good opportunity for him. It's kind of really sad that it's going to be with a different company, but it's a really awesome opportunity for him, and he will definitely learn a lot. Alexander, he last year he got his apprenticeship certification, and was out spraying with me all year. And so this year I'm excited for him to kind of hone in on that a little bit more,
Mhm.
definitely excited for him to get his technician certification. He's going to be, last year it was him and I in a vehicle going out and do properties together. This year it's going to be, he has a route and I have a route, and it's going to be the first time of that happening. It's exciting.
Yeah, no, that sounds cool. I mean, that's great that you've got there's a lot of cool things in their future for sure, but having being able to kind of oversee all that and see it coming to fruition has got to be a good feeling, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. Do you have any shows that you're planning on the tree side of things for this year?
I do want to try and make Arborfest in North Carolina in April, but I'm not really sure if I'm going to be able to make that one yet. The one that happens, this time of year in Boston, I wasn't able to make it for probably for the first time in, I think, like 10 years that I wasn't able to make it out there. But where I am going to make it, the ISA is actually coming to the States, and they're going to be in Detroit midsummer. I very much want to make it to there. And
Mm.
TCIA later in the year is going to be in Fort Lauderdale, so I'm
Yes.
definitely gonna make it to there. If I can make it to definitely Detroit and Fort Lauderdale, those are the definites. And it would be cool if I could also make it to Arborfest, but if not, it is what it is.
Why do you go to shows? Like, why should someone go to a show if they're in this industry?
For me, it's the education. It's It's the education. Like, I believe you're not living unless you're learning. So I go to as many classes as I can, even if it's not a topic that would necessarily be something that I'm doing right now. You could always learn something, and then who knows, 3 years down the line, you're on a job, and something happens, and you're like, oh, I remember that, and I learn in person and hands on much better than just like watching a video. So,
Mm,
taking the online classes is helpful, but it's not the same as actually being in a class and being able to interact with people, hear their questions, ask questions yourself, maybe talk to the teacher after, it's
mm.
I just feel it's a much better way of learning for me personally.
Yeah, I would agree, and the other thing I like about the classes it shows is just the interaction you can get with other people in the industry, it's not like I wouldn't call it a huge networking thing because obviously you're there for the class, but I've met quite a few people going to the different classes and made connections through going to the classes, but I think the classes are one thing that shows that definitely are overlooked by a lot of people. That they think of like a trade show or that type of show, and they're focused on equipment or going to a
Yeah.
booth or that type of thing, and they kind of skip past the education. Which I get some of the shows that there's you have to pay extra for the education and things, which makes sense. But there's a lot of shows where it's included, and I don't know why anybody wouldn't want to take it up on those.
Exactly. And if there's something that's happening on the trade show that you really don't want to miss, and then a class is also happening at the same time, a lot of the conferences, they'll have a window where the classes are available online, even after the
Mm,
trade show ends. So just in case something happens, you could still get the education or the credits, or at least reduced credits.
yeah. Oh yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't think about that one.
And the networking is definitely a very big part of it as well. I mean, for both business wise and education wise, there's people that I've met at the shows that I'll text or I'll call them when I'm stumped about a plant healthcare question, and that connection would not have been there if I did not meet them at the show.
Yeah. Yeah, you never know. There's people I met at the shows. Lord, it's been a long time now. It's like, 10, 12 years ago that I still converse with on a regular basis, and had it not been for that one show and just standing next to the same person at that booth, like, shoulder to shoulder going, "What do you think about that piece of equipment? Like, have you used it?" "Oh, no, I haven't. I came here to look at it," and you strike up a conversation and then, kinda like somebody coming up to a booth to get a sample of oil.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, one of my very, very, very good friends. Her and I talk almost on a daily basis. Her name is Emily, and she's actually down in North Carolina, and
Oh, nice.
your end of the world.
Nice.
And she's a fellow tree lady, and we met at a show. Pretty much going to shows and being able to see each other the once a year that we get to is like the
Right.
only time we actually get to face see each other. But it's we talk almost every day.
Awesome. Yeah. I love that too. That's what one of the things I love about the industry is people are so willing to connect with others and help each other, but, I mean, you don't realize how strong those bonds can be. It
Yeah.
can go from just a knowledge and passing of knowledge type thing, and then it turns into a deep friendship just because of a love shared, interest in the same things. It's always awesome. Absolutely love that. So what are you is there anything that you are doing differently this going into this year than years past? Anything like marketing wise or your day to day?
I mean, yes.
I throw a random question out at you.
That's what I mean. I feel like, if you did the same thing every year, nothing lasts forever. Trends change, people change, the economy changes. You should always be doing something a little bit different. Very much learned a lot of hard lessons last year, both in business and personal about myself, and as a crew leader slash business leader slash mom at the same time. This year I feel like I'm going to do a lot of things differently, but most of them are the way that I'm going to do things, not necessarily the things themselves that are changing.
Gotcha. That makes
If
sense.
that makes sense. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and the fact that you're conscious of that and you're looking at what you just said, saying that it's not it's not necessarily doing a bunch of things differently, like brand new things. You're looking at what you're doing and saying, "I can switch this. I can make things different and make things better," first and
Right.
foremost.
Yes.
Because I know a lot of business owners who will, struggle with something and think, "Okay, I'm struggling with this because it's not the right thing. I need to go do something else," and they're just constantly doing that and
Right.
never achieving success because they're always trying to reinvent the wheel on something they could have done it better in the first place.
Right.
So, what is the market like up there right now? Is it about the same? Is it increasing ever more? Because I know it
It's
changes in
everything.
different regions, so
It's increasing. People, it's now that it's starting to be warm outside, 37 degrees is warm, but it's, now that it's starting to be warm outside, people and are going outside. This week I've been getting, the phone calls for spring pruning and cleanups, and, things are starting to happen. The last couple weeks, the majority of the work that we've been doing and phone calls that have been coming in, besides the the wrapping of the vines and
mm,
hydrangeas and things, is getting snow and ice off of roofs, because after all that snow, that's a lot of weight on the house, first of all, and second of all, when the snow melts, it melts and then it hits the gutters and it freezes,
yeah, you
and
get
then
that
it
ice dam.
yeah, and then water starts to get in the house, and, with climbing, you could tie a rope to a tree or, something, and throw it over the house and have your harness on, and, so we've been we've been doing a lot of roof work recently on top of everything else. But now, this week, calls and estimates have been coming in for actual tree work.
Do you do any kind of advertising, or is it, like, mainly word of mouth type?
I still don't do advertising. People ask me that. I keep meaning to, but not having a chance to.
Well, no, I mean, there's a certain aspect where if you're busy enough to maintain what you need to maintain, then there really is no need, for the on the
Yeah.
advertising side of it, so
I mean, I make like Facebook posts and like Instagram posts, and people see those, but not necessarily like, we don't have like a marketing campaign, or we don't put like,
Mhm.
mailers out. We don't have like, we're not signed up with a company to receive leads from, people searching online, or, like,
Right,
I
yeah.
yeah, I've had estimates for like a whole bunch of things like that. Maybe one day.
Well, it's tough. I mean, there's so much out there that it's really that's one of the hardest ones, I think, to really be able to take on because you just never know. It's there's just so many companies out there promising so many different things, and
Yeah.
if you're it's good that you have the ability to not have to depend on it, right? Because there's many times where I think that's the case where people are extremely dependent on advertising in order to just make a turn on getting estimates out there and everything, and
Right.
then they don't really know what works and what doesn't, but with you being able to kinda have that buffer, then it makes it a little bit easier on you, takes that stress away.
And I'm also, it kind of works for me because I'm not a larger scale company where I have, three chip trucks and a couple chippers and 12 guys, and, I don't need to bring in that amount of work to cover all of those things. I have my boys and me, and I have a business partner, and he's got a couple guys, but, we're very small scale, and we don't have a lot of major equipment. While the equipment would be, you know, more equipment, the bigger jobs,
Sure.
easier job, faster, this and that and the other, but we have what we need, and we could pretty much do anything with what we have, so we kind of just stick with that and go from there. So it's helpful to not have to bring in all of those leads all of the time. I can rely
Right.
on the amount that comes in just from the word.
Yeah, that is a good so, well, and when you have multiple avenues of revenue, it helps too, being able to do the plant
Yes.
care, trees, taking care of snow.
Yeah.
Going into this year, having been doing it for because 'cause you've been doing it for is it 10 years? Over 10 years now, but
Over 10 years.
yeah.
Yeah.
But your advice to someone who is looking to get into it this year, where they're like, "Okay, I'm gonna wait till winter gets over, and then this year I'm gonna look at getting into tree work, what would your advice be to them first and foremost?
If you're waiting for winter to be over and the spring to start to get started, you're already in that time period. So if you're gonna wait until it's actually really warm outside, you're already too late. I'd say start getting into it now. I guess it would depend on what avenue they want to go in as far as
Let's say we're talking somebody who's uh, been doing some landscaping, but they wanna get into tree work. So not necessarily like a full off, like, gonna
start
do it 24/7, but they wanna add that service to their landscaping because they see, maybe they see some trucks around the area and they're like, "Hey, I could probably do that."
start learning knots.
Okay.
Get a book on tying knots, get a small section of rope, and just learn as many knots as you can. At night, just practice them, get the muscle memory of making the knots. There's a bunch of different books on even knots geared towards tree work, and they'll explain, like this is a bow line, and that you use it in this situation or this situation, or you could use it for this, and uh I'd say that would be the biggest thing. Start learning your notes.
Nice, that's an interesting thought. I like that one. Do you would you recommend as far as someone if someone's gonna be and I was actually talking with Mark on, Goldberg, who co-hosts the other podcast with me. We were talking about folks, needing to have kind of a dedication of sorts to, free work because it's not something you just kinda go into lightly. It's something you wanna really, dedicate yourself to. At what point do you? Because I know it's different for kind of every person, I guess, but in your opinion, at one point does someone look at going into the arborist side of it as far as actually going and taking tests and, doing the education for becoming an arborist? Would you say that that's something that you would recommend people doing after they've had a couple of years in the industry?
Yes. Yes. I think having some actual hands-on experience definitely helps you understand of going through the arborist classes better. Because if you're just reading something in a book or just hearing about it or hearing about other people's experiences, it's just like reading a book. You can only rely on your imagination, but if you've actually been able to feel what it's like to be in that situation or know what it's like to get the chainsaw stuck in the wood, and like if you're looking at a book and you're looking about compression, looking at a picture about compression wood, and they're explaining, hey, you want to cut here instead of here, well, like, oh yeah, that like makes total sense, I can do that, but if you're like, oh yeah, I remember when I got the saw stuck and everyone made fun of me, this happened, I think help it helps people understand the different concepts better.
Yeah.
So I would, even though it sounds counterproductive, I do think it is more preferable for someone to have some actual in-field experience before they start pursuing getting like the certifications or licenses.
Yeah. Well, and I think that too that, and I love the example you gave about the saw because it is a really good point. Is that if you don't really know what's being talked about, you're not going to absorb that information. But I think it also gives getting that hands-on experience also gives you a great way of deciding on whether you actually want to do it or not.
Yeah. Yeah, because they're arborists. You know, it's not exactly a cheap career. It's not exactly something that you could just do overnight. A lot of the classes, there's 40-hour classes. There's, for this license, you need this many credits. So it is something that if you do want to pursue it, you do have to put time into it, and it would be a waste to put all that time and energy into something that you do it for 2 weeks on the crew and you're like, oh yeah, I don't want to do this.
Yeah, I have to haul how many limbs? What are you?
Because you're an arborist doesn't mean you have to haul limbs. You could be a sales arborist. You
Oh,
could,
true. That yeah, yeah. You won't necessarily have sawdust in all the places that you don't want them.
yeah.
There is that. All right. I have one last question for you. I promise this one will be an easy one. Well, actually, technically, I guess it could be a hard one depending on
I know.
it's not a technical question by any means.
Okay.
Just because I wanted to go out, I wanted to, kind of end things off in a fun way. But I want to know if you could choose any tree in the world that you have not yet climbed, what would it be? Like if you're like, I would love to climb this tree one day.
It's a hard question.
So that's why I was like, it's an easy one, but a hard one, I guess, at the same time, because deciding. But
Well, I mean, one of those like impossible, it's never going to happen in my lifetime situations, but would be really cool if in the rainforest,
Mhm.
the trees where there's literally it's a whole nother world on the top
Yeah, the
canopy. The
top canopy, yeah.
branches, you're walking on ground, but it's very far up in the air.
Yeah, yeah.
That would be cool to experience.
Yeah, I could see you up there.
Yeah.
You definitely dig that one. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I know. I know a lot of tree guys. The first answer would be, of course, the redwoods out in California or Washington, or the where you take 3 days to climb up there and camp and have the whole experience and this and that and the other. But I feel like that's such a generic. I definitely that
Yeah,
would be really cool to be up there, like in the sky, but on the ground, and like see other, like all the other animals walking around. And I don't know. I
yeah.
think that would be awesome.
Yeah, there's definitely a big difference between it because it's a whole 'nother world versus just being taller,
Yes.
Not and I'm not downplaying I don't need people in the comments of my video that I post when I post this saying like, "Oh, what are you talking about? The redwoods are just taller." I'm like, I'm not disparaging anyone who likes to climb a redwood by any means, but,
It's an entire different ecosystem. Like
you know
there's
Yeah,
plants that grow up there that do not grow on the ground. Like you can only view those plants from up there.
exactly. Yeah,
Like it's the yeah.
yeah. It's
So that would
literally
be
like, I mean, the easiest or the best way I guess I could equate it, because I spent some time down in the jungles in South America, and
really okay.
it's like when you take off in an airplane, and you're on the ground, you're in that area, and then you go up, and then you go above the cloud level, and there's nothing of the world below anymore, for sure. Now I'm gonna be thinking about that tonight. Well, Athena, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. It was great having you back on, and
Thank you for having me.
I'm looking forward to seeing you at ArborFest, but if not there, then I will see you at one of the others because we're going to all of those this year. So,
Okay. And
yeah.
then you gotta let me know when you guys are coming up north.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It'll be in May sometime. I don't know the exact date, but it'll be in
Okay.
May. But I'll let you know. I'll give you the heads up on that one. For everybody listening, thank you so much. Make sure to like, share, comment, all the other things on the videos and or on the Spotify's and everything else. However, you are ingesting this information. I want to thank again my special guest Athena Odell for coming on, and we'll definitely have you back on, of course, and catching up as we get into the year and see where things are going and catch back up again. But until then, this has been another exciting episode of Lubrication Across the Nation, brought to you by DGP. That's right, Dynamic Green Products, bio-based, zero compromise.